Hello and welcome back to Azure Terraformer. I have another special episode for you today. Got another coffee break. This one thanks to Piconi. He says, enjoy another coffee, or 3. I don't know what I did to deserve such generosity, but Piconi, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. I don't know if I can pound 3 coffees today, but I do have this lovely cappuccino here at The Patch in Destin or Miramar Beach. I'm not sure which, but it's a really nice place, as you can see, next to, I think, kind of a design center for some pretty neat furniture, which got some nice furniture here. Got a nice leather couch I'm sitting on. Very comfortable and relatively new place, but pretty swanky. Kind of surprised to find such a nice place here, but well, that's good. That's good. Got a hint of vanilla in there today. So we're back again for another coffee break. And last time I went on about Red Bull, airplanes, and math professors. This time I thought I might just go back to the beginning of my career, or at least a key pivot point of my career. Early on when I took my first consulting role. This was, I guess, when I was in my early 20s, and I had been working in a corporate job at a bank for many years, doing all sorts of like IT pro stuff, racking servers, installing operating systems like NT4 and stuff like that, setting up clusters, a lot of Compaq, a lot of Dell stuff, getting into programming. Did some Java, did some VB Com+, and did my first .NET project while I was there. It was a great opportunity to really grow and understand what it was like to be in a working environment. This was all during college. I worked almost full time through college. Unfortunately, that didn't help me evade student loans or racking up student loans during my college life. But luckily I was able to get myself out of that relatively quickly just by focusing gazelle-like intensity on the debt. But so working at a corporate job is very different, at least I found out at the time, than consulting. And I didn't even realize that I was joining a consulting company, really, or how things would be different at a consulting company from my corporate job. At my corporate job, I had a cubicle. I'd show up at 8 o'clock. I'd leave at 5 o'clock. I'd have a lunch break. All of my coworkers and my manager would all be in kind of relatively same area of the building. And that was my routine. But when I first started consulting, they told me, yeah, you just work from home until we get you staffed on a project, and we'll send you a laptop, we'll send you a backpack, and just wait for orders, basically. And so I'm sitting there Monday, start my new job, and I got my backpack, got my laptop, I sign in, nobody talks to me all day. Nothing to do, no project. I might have gotten one email from HR, boilerplate stuff, and I'm starting to get stir crazy. I'm like, is this a real job? Like, what am I doing? I'm sitting on my couch in my condo with this laptop that this company sent me. And it's a pretty reputable company. It's a pretty big company. But like, they just want me to sit here on my laptop and do nothing all day? And so this was my first introduction to the bench. And in the consulting world, there's a bench. And depending on the organization, the bench can be long or relatively short, as anybody that's in consulting, you know what I'm talking about. But at the time, this was 2006, so this was before the financial crisis. Things were relatively comfortable in terms of like bench size and things like that. People really started ratcheting down bench size like after the financial crisis of 2008. So it was relatively stable time. But for me, this was so foreign and so alien. And, I had this very middle class mindset of like, you go in, you clock out, like you do your work, you work hard, like, you finish up your work and you go home. And I had no idea that this mode of work even existed. So it was like I was very paranoid and very worried about, my future prospects, and like questioning whether I did the right thing in taking this job. So it was very, very interesting first 2 weeks, and it lasted literally 2 weeks before I started getting emails from demand. And there was a team. I later understood that there's basically a demand management team. And demand in consulting is new projects that are spinning up. In consulting, there's demand, which are new projects, and then there's supply, which was me, the consultants, the workers that are going to go do those projects. And so there was a supply and a demand portal where you basically tracked projects, and and then you tracked the consultants that you would line up with those projects based on skills and level and the needs of whatever the demand was. And so my first project landed me in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, at a beer brewer there, and it was very, very interesting walking into this client site. We met the Accenture partner there, and he gave us kind of a brief overview of the beer industry and kind of some context, what I later understood to be the business context of the client. In consulting, you kind of have to understand how your customer makes money, because that will help you, better understand like what the objective is, what the macro level objective is at that customer. No matter what technology solution you're implementing, if you understand what the customer does and how they make money, kind of helps you align the technology solutions to that. After the business context was done for the customer, the Accenture partner went into what the opportunity was, what system we were going to build, who the key stakeholders were on the client side, and kind of a game plan for what he and the other relationship manager folks were doing behind the scenes. And he kind of threw us a few contacts on the business and kind of the technology liaison where we could plug in and start making ourselves useful, so to speak. And that was largely understanding the business requirements and kind of formulating a high-level design or solution blueprint, which we could then say to the customer, hey, we understand your problem. Here's how we'll solve it with technology. So, that was, again, a very radical way of working that I'd never experienced before. Because when you work at a corporate job, you show up at a cubicle, there's really no like business context, opportunity context. These are kind of like new concepts that I think really only apply in the consulting or the services space. But it really made an impression on me that this Accenture partner, I later understood that Accenture partner was a very high-level person with a lot of responsibility. He really impressed kind of a polish and a way of communicating that was very, very concise and very focused that I really appreciated and was impressed by, and left kind of a lasting impression on me. So we spoke with the business stakeholders. We got some high-level requirements, and I talked to the solution architect who flew in with me from Columbus, Ohio to Milwaukee on Midwest Airlines at the time. Pretty cool small carrier. Their shtick was they give you like a hot or a warm chocolate chip cookie on every flight. So it was a nice airline. I flew that airline to Milwaukee the duration of that project. Anyway, so after gathering these high-level requirements, I sat down and started working on database schema for the SQL Server database, and I showed this to the solution architect, and he said, "That's great, Mark, we're looking for a tech lead to lead the dev team to implement this. You want the job?" And I was a little shocked because this is my first gig at this company, and they brought me in at, I think, consultant level. And, at that level, you were an individual contributor. You weren't expected to lead teams. But I said, "Are you sure? Like, are you sure you want to do that? Like, I've never led a team before, but I'm willing to give it a shot." And he said, I think you don't give yourself enough credit." And that obviously made me feel really good. And so 2 weeks later, we had about eight to 10 more people drop, boots on the ground in Milwaukee. And we were building this system in no time at all. And we put in a lot of hours, but at this particular customer, they had a pub on site because it was a beer brewer. So that kind of helped things out. But I mean, we were working, like, I think I'd show up at 7:30 because we had 8 a.m. meetings. I'd show up at 7:30 to make sure I was prepared and ready for the 8 o'clock meetings. And we'd work until the pub opened at like 4:30. We'd go to the pub, we'd get a free round of beers until the pub closed, I don't know, around 6:30. And then we'd probably work from 6:30 until 2 a.m. Then I'd drive to the hotel, sleep for a few hours, rinse and repeat. And I did that for about 6 months. I mean, it was they called it a death march, which is, I guess, consulting term for a project where you work insane hours. And we were flying in Monday, we're flying out Friday, which in consulting, usually you fly in Monday, you fly out Thursday, and you got Friday kind of low-key day. So you have a little bit more time with your family. But that was my introduction to consulting. And throughout this experience, working these hours, I log my hours, I build my hours. I got a call from HR one day, and they're like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, what? I'm having great. I'm living my best life, And they're like, "Well, you kind of showed up on our chargeability matrix, and looks like you billed 224%, and you were like the number one guy on our chargeability sheet here," which chargeability is a key metric in consulting, which means how many billable hours you have for your customers. So 100% is like, 40 hours a week, right? So if you bill 8, 5 days a week, you're going to get 40. 200% is working 80-hour weeks, right? So apparently there's some flag that gets tripped when you start working way too many chargeable hours. They start worrying about your mental health. And so I got that call. It was an interesting conversation. Introduced me to the chargeability metric in consulting. So yeah, that was my first project in consulting. Learned so many new things. First time I ever saw Agile attempted, and I must say attempted because we were not doing Agile right by any stretch of the imagination. We did the daily scrum and we did the rituals, but this was very early Agile days. And we did continuous integration. I think we were using cruise control at the time, which is, compared to the stuff that we have today, it was light years behind. We thought we got a kick out of the fact that if somebody broke the build, we play a sound that Darth Vader was saying some threatening thing, it was a big joke. But nowadays with GitHub Actions and Jenkins and, all the things that we have from an automation standpoint, it's really, it's really amazing looking back at the tools that we had to work with. I think even source code wise, we were using VSS, I think 6.0D or something like that, which is, we weren't even using Git, right? If any of you guys remember VSS, like, dear God, you feel my pain. You feel my pain. Anyway, so that was my introduction to consulting, technology consulting. I'm sure, there's lots of different consultants out there, strategy, whatever, accounting. Their experiences might be different, but it was an eye-opening experience, and it was a lot of fun. I worked my butt off, but I learned a lot. Talk about flying by the seat of your pants. it's an interesting life. I think it's a life built for young people that are not, married or otherwise attached. I knew some kids like 20 somethings, and they would just, like, they traveled so much they didn't even have their own place. They lived with their parents, so to speak, but they didn't really live with their parents. They just lived in hotels like I did, except unlike me, they didn't have a mortgage, right? So I think it's definitely oriented towards people with that kind of energy, more young people. But if you're new in your career, I'd say it's a great opportunity to build skills and build a career portfolio that can open new doors that may not have been available to you previously. Anyways, Piconi, thank you again for the coffee. Hope you guys enjoyed my ramblings this week from the beautiful Carrot Top or the Patch Coffee Cafe here in Miramar Beach. Anyways, that's it for me. This is the Azure Terraformer signing off.